I'm inviting you into a time machine. Will you come back with me? I'm taking you back to my sophomore year of college at DePaul University in downtown Chicago, Illinois. Blue Demons, yes! Now, I'm living life at this stage as what I would consider your everyday college student. I'm going to school full-time, I'm working part-time, I'm president of a business fraternity, I'm volunteering at a women's shelter across the street from my campus, and I'm a resident advisor. Anyone in here ever felt like really overwhelmed, overextended, busy? Just a few of you, as I expected? Yeah. Overwhelm is my middle name at this point. So that is the headspace I am in. But I also know how to keep all the plates spinning in the air. You know what I'm saying? You know which project, which team, which thing gets this amount of time per day, per week to keep all of the plates spinning simultaneously. You know that if you moved the elf there last night, they were actually there 3 years ago, and so you need to move them again tonight. That's the headspace I'm in as I am scheduled to work at my part-time job on a Tuesday afternoon. Now, the Tuesday afternoon shifts are dead. Nobody's in the salon. So I convinced my roommate and best friend at the time to come with me and keep me company while I'm working at the salon. So we are starting our 2-block walk from our apartment to the salon. And as we're walking, we're chatting. We're talking about what we're going to have for dinner that night or probably what we're going to do that weekend. And I like to stay very aware of my surroundings. I live in Chicago, and as I'm looking behind me, I notice that there's this woman trailing really close behind me. I glance over my shoulder, and she's getting extremely close, and she's taking notes in a notepad. So I keep walking a few more steps, and I look again, and she's gotten another angle, and she's jotting again on this notepad, and I'm thinking, why is this stranger following me down the street and writing things in a notepad? But if I stop for every odd thing I see in downtown Chicago, I'd probably never make it to where I'm going, so I continue on. I walk into the salon, throw down my things, stand behind the desk, turn around only to be greeted by this woman who is following me down the street. She holds out her hand, she introduces herself as a talent agent, and then she asks me to come to a modeling audition. And I'm like, ma'am, pardon? What about this is screaming model to you? And she said, no, you don't get it, this is different. Do you know Dove, the brand? I said, yeah, that soap bar, sure. She said, this campaign is new. It's about widening the definition of what women look like in the media. It's about widening the idea we have of what women should be represented like in the media. And I was watching you walk down the street. You know, you have your shoulders back, you're walking confidently, you're laughing, you're curvy. You'd be perfect for this campaign. So now I'm thinking what we've all been thinking. This stranger just walked into my work and called me curvy. Like, that is all I heard. We all know what that means in code, yes? I tell her there's absolutely no way. Not only did you just call me curvy and I know what that means, overwhelm is my middle name. There's no way I can fit one more thing in. There's no way I will ever become a model. So I'm walking into the back of the salon. I'm doing the things I'm actually there to do, right? I'm getting some coffees and some teas. I'm folding some towels. And I'm in the back about 30 minutes dealing with our clients. And I return to the front. Both this woman and my friend are gone. And I forget this encounter ever happened. I go through the rest of my shift at work. Hours later, I return back to my apartment. My friend Katie is plopped down on our couch. She's flipping through the channels. I plop down right next to her. I say, hey, Katie, how's it going? How's the rest of your day? I'm starving. Let's go. And Katie turned to me and she said, I have something to share. You might not love it. So when you walked into the back earlier, that woman and I started walking the same direction. We left together. We were chatting. We were getting to know one another. She told me more about this campaign. I took her business card. I came back to our apartment. I called. I pretended to be you. And I made you an appointment. And you're going to that modeling audition next week. Sure. I'd love to. I'd love to show up to some building downtown Chicago I've never been. Meet some person I've never met. Take off my clothes and see what happens. This sounds like a Lifetime movie or a Netflix documentary, like waiting to be written. But I go back to my bedroom, I call my go-to person, my mom. I'm like telling my mom the whole story. My mom says, Stacy, you were at a place in your life where you just say yes. That's who you are. Go try it. What do you have to lose? So I walk back to the living room. Katie, you win. I'll go. And Katie goes, all right, now you're gonna be pissed, but just stick with me on this one. You do have to show up to the audition in your full underwear. So they're gonna take a few photographs. They told me it's totally safe. This is a photographer that's a professional, and it's gonna be totally fine, and it's gotta be white, and it's gotta be cotton. Katie convinced me, and that next week I show up in my double-layered, brand new white underwear. I let this person take 4 photographs, the front, the side, the back, the other side. That's it. It was about 36 seconds. I'm putting my clothes back on thinking, what is happening? What did I just do? I get back to the bus stop. Katie and I are sitting there, and I turned to Katie and I said, well, we'll never talk about this again. This is one of those college things we just like leave it here. Little did I know, about a year later, I'd be telling a lot of the world my story. Months, callbacks, interviews, video interviews, phone interviews. I got an 8 a.m. Saturday morning wake-up call. Stacy, congratulations, you've made it. You're one of the original 6 Dove Campaign for Real Beauty models. And what ensued after that, nobody could be prepared for. Nobody knew was coming. I'm the one all the way to the right, if you haven't found me just yet. And this picture, I'm taking you back to our launch party. This picture was taken about 2 blocks from here in Times Square. And this was our launch party to launch the very first billboard that was going to be a part of this campaign. After that, the floodgates literally opened. Edelman, our PR company, found every open marketing space they could find and put this image there. We went to print in 100% of women's magazines that went to print, and about 90% of the men's. We got to dance with Ellen DeGeneres. We got to give Oprah Winfrey a hug. I got to pet her dogs and have breakfast with her. It was an unbelievable experience, one we never saw coming. And so many people have said, wow, what an impact, what bravery, what courage. But the truth is I had no idea I needed any courage. I had no idea what was about to happen. We thought for sure we'd be in a magazine for the month of June. I'd walk in and buy all those magazines, keep them in plastic so I later could show everyone down the road and move on with my life. But what I didn't know is purpose was unfolding throughout the entire process. I used to think purpose was this big lightning bulb moment, right? Just the big promotion, the big Times Square party, getting to dance with Ellen. Those are the purposeful moments. But what I didn't realize is it was actually happening every step of the way. Because what we got to do, yes, we got to go on some cool shows, we got to have some fun stories. We also met tons, thousands, tens and hundreds of thousands of women who shared their story. This is pre-social media, so we were on like the chat rooms on dove.com. And I got to hear so many of them, I got to meet so many of them in person. And that purpose was unfolding through the stories of a woman who approached me and said that she had just entered an eating disorder rehabilitation center because that picture gave her permission to get herself healthy. I later celebrated with a woman who put a bathing suit on for the first time in 26 years because she saw herself represented in that image. Things were starting to change. The conversation was shifting, but it wasn't in the big moments. It was in the small wins along the way. I was going too fast at the time to really see it then, but now I come back, and every time somebody asks me one of my favorite memories, it's a story of a woman I met. It's a story who had a purposeful shift inside of her because of this picture, because of this campaign. That means that we all have small steps along the way to collect. So I want you to start collecting them yourself. I know for a fact every single person in this room creates massive purpose in those around you. So I invite you to actually keep a list. My encouragement, the way I do this, is I keep a Post-it note on the side of my desk. I never want to move too fast and miss this again. So I keep a Post-it note, and I write down the small wins that I collect. My client had this moment. My client had this breakthrough. That keynote went great, whatever it is. And imagine my list at the end of the week, or the end of the quarter, or the end of the year. So take 10 seconds right now. Imagine a win that felt small, but right in this moment maybe doesn't feel quite as small, that you've had in the last 30 days. A moment you created purpose for somebody else. That's evidence. It's evidence of the purpose you create, and you can continue to do so and collect that evidence so you can see your purpose down the road.
You know, Stace, I love that advice because like you said, it's not always about the big promotion. Sometimes just nailing the QBR is enough, right? Because when momentum builds, impact multiplies. The key is to start small. So how does this translate to our corporate brand, right? Trying to define a company-wide purpose is an extremely daunting task. And for anyone in corporate, you also can understand trying to go through all of the layers of approval and feedback is very difficult, right? So I am going to introduce you to our first corporate brand hack. Start with the campaign. Campaigns are built to have a shelf life, right? You can use this to test your messaging in a small target audience. Learn from the data, iterate, right? But when you think about that target audience, your most important audience may not be who you think it is. I am here to argue that it's actually all of your internal associates, right? They are on the front line of your brand experience. They need to be your number one believers. So when you're thinking about how you can start small for your corporate brand, talk to your associates, right? Understand what's going on with them. Ask them the question, why do we exist beyond making money? So let's look at this in practice. B2B is hard, as we all are very familiar with. So we're going to look to B2C for a little inspiration. I'm sure we're all very familiar with this brand, and it may not be because you own a pair. Tom's was one of the first and early pioneers to take social responsibility as a part of their business strategy. But they started with a marketing campaign. You buy a pair, we donate a pair. And with the success of this campaign, that was cemented into their brand ethos. Now, that is an extreme example, but I challenge all of you to think about how you might be able to do the same. Test your messaging, learn quickly, start small.
I love what you're saying because it doesn't have to be huge to have impact. The small wins along the way help create that. And we want to be thinking also about how we're showing up as we're collecting these small wins. Small wins are important. How are we doing it? How are we showing up? And that's where presence becomes really key. Your presence is the nonverbal you. It's your energy. It's what walks into the room before your title does. It is how you make people feel. I mean, imagine this. Imagine had Stacy and I walked up here and started with a very small presence, which we know very little about. But had we started like this and started with, hello.
Hi, Stacy.
Hi.
Hi.
It's good to
You too.
It's always good to see you. We're going to be talking today to you about a few things. We have like 3 main pillars. We're real proud of them. One's purpose, one's presence. We're going to get to the pitch. Spoiler, it's coming. We're going to do our best, and we're excited. We're excited.
We're excited, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. You all would have been at happy hour a little early, yes? We obviously didn't do that. We don't know how. I mean, that was actually hard for us to act that out. But what we did instead is we filled up this room. We filled up this room with our passion, with our energy. We left you no room to really have any other experience of us. Like, sure, you had the random human quick judgment thoughts when we walked up here, because we all do. That's just the brain. I mean, you likely were thinking how amazing our outfits are. Yeah, like a moment for the suits. But I can promise you in the last 30 seconds you were not thinking about our outfits, because we didn't leave you room to even think those thoughts. we filled up the room with how much we care about this. We filled up the room with how important this is. See, I used to think we had to be different versions of ourselves. A version of me up here talking to all of you, a version of me coaching a CEO because that's a big title, a version of me showing up at the ball field with the fellow moms who I'm somehow competing with, but I don't mean to, I don't know why, and I'm just I'm trying to be your friend, but it feels weird, I'm not sure. Your kid's great, But the truth is, all those fragmented pieces were not me. And those different versions and fragmented pieces aren't you either. The truth is we don't have to be different versions of ourselves. We just get to be the most expressed version of who we are anytime we choose to be.
Stace, and you could say expression is built in your personality, right? And as we just demonstrated, your personality is not what you say, but how you say it, right? So when we think about that and how you want to show up, lead with personality. So you might be thinking, how does this have anything to do with my company? Well, every company needs a brand personality. And you might think, I might need to hire someone to figure that out, but we're all here for the age-old problem. There's no budget. We all know that. We've all heard those two words. So what do? Well, I have another corporate brand hack for you. Take a personality test. Yes, the same one that you or I may take for ourselves. Now, I'm going to caveat this really quick because it takes a very strong-willed person to take this test and answer those questions on behalf of your company and not yourself. It's just human nature, right? But I will take you one step further to say you don't even have to take the test. Look at the personality types, read the descriptors, find which one resonates most with your company values. That is now your brand voice. Why do you need that? Because what we just talked about, and I want to emphasize, marketers are not the only person in your company responsible for your brand. I'm going to say that one more time. Marketers are not the only person in your company responsible for your brand. Every single associate is responsible for your brand. They need something that they can understand, that they can rally behind, that they get excited about. They want a brand personality, and this is how you can deliver that for them. So let's go back to our B2C examples. Now, if we look at Myers-Briggs as an example of a personality test, the most common one in the United States, at about 13% of the population, is ISFJ, or more commonly known as the protector. If we look at a brand, we might think, Dove. I don't know where that came from. Right? Honest, loyal, caring, reassuring. Now, if we go across the category to Old Spice, we might find the rebel, right? Provocative, energetic, bold. Neither one better than the other, but they're both speaking to their target audience in a unique voice that resonates. It makes them memorable. Find your voice and lead with personality.
I love this, okay? Because personality is really the action behind purpose. It's getting it into motion. It's also linking us to the next idea, which is part of, well, we're going to pitch. Yeah.
Of course.
Pitch is how we talk to the audience and to ourselves. This couldn't be more vital. Think about it this way. If my energy spoke bold, if Stacy's energy spoke big, but we had come up here and inside we're thinking small, feeling small, talking to ourselves small, referring to all the other amazing speakers and panelists we saw today, thinking, how are we going to do this? How can we hold a candle to them? It would have fallen flat. You would have felt it. It wouldn't have worked. The internal script has to match the external presence. It has to have the pitch both here and externally. If you think about this from a personal leadership standpoint, I'm going to argue that this is your story. And we've heard us talk about story today. So many beautiful, smart women talked about that up here today, right? And your story is important. Your story is super important. And I categorize your story as things you believe to be true about yourself that are unshakable. Like it's hard to shake it. If somebody walked up to you and tried to poke holes in your story, you'd kind of be like, no, I trust this part. I know this story is true about me. Stacy and I know we're good dancers. It's part of our story, okay? Jessica was too. Did you see her moves earlier? Okay.
I clocked it.
We noticed. Good dancers notice good dancers. Yeah. It's like respect, talent,
Exactly.
the whole thing. So if you walk up to us later and you're like, I watched you walk on that stage, you have no rhythm, we'd lovingly laugh and keep walking. You can't shake our story. But it goes to the other side too. In second grade, I had a teacher, Mrs. Stacie. And Mrs. Stacie really liked to give timed multiplication quizzes every Friday. Anybody ever? Yeah. And the idea that Mrs. Stacie thought was so great for this second grade class was let's win. Let's get competitive with it. It'll be so fun. I finished last every single Friday.
I was always first, by the way.
Yeah,
always. Just had to put that out there.
No, for sure. No, no one didn't know that. Obvious. I was last every single Friday. And imagine what's happening in my head. I'm terrible at this. I'm horrible. I can't do this. Everybody's better than me. I should just give up. Why am I trying? And then every Friday, Mrs. Stacie would call my mom, and she would report the news. And my mom, badass, bold woman, right? Her response was, were all the questions right? And Mrs. Stacie's like, yes. And my mom's like, thanks for calling, Mrs. Stacie, right? What are we talking about here? And I'd come home, and my mom would reassure me, you know the information, that's what counts. It doesn't matter if it takes you an extra few minutes, you know what you're talking about, you know what you're doing. Guess whose story I decided to keep? Mrs. Stacie's. That I was terrible. Because our brain wants to take the negative bias. We actually have to put a lot of intention and effort into choosing a different way, a different pitch, a different story. We can do it, we just have to slow down. We just have to check in. What is the story I've adopted? Who is it from? And does it serve me to keep going? It wasn't until freshman year of college, shout out to Professor Doran. I saw him one time out and about in downtown Chicago, and I ran over to him, and he was very appalled, great to see you. And I was like, you changed my life. You changed my math story. And he's like, great. We were in algebra. What do you mean? I'm like, I had a story that I was terrible. You helped me get an A. It changed my whole life. And he's like, awesome. It was really good to see you. Keep swapping. We have the power to help people's stories, but way more importantly, we have the power to shift our own. Your story is vital. It is everything. So I want you to take just a second. I want you to think about a story you can leave here in the room. The room can hold it. But think about a story you've been carrying for who knows how long, and leave it here. Me holding on to that story changed the entire trajectory of how I showed up in my business, how I chose college classes. Now, let's be honest, I was not becoming the next best CPA. That was not happening. But I avoided it. I avoided numbers when I first started my business. I didn't want to look at them. I didn't want to talk about it. It definitely impacted me in more ways than I can even tell you because I held on to that story for way too long. Now, I remember that I can hire people for the numbers. There are far superior people to me when it comes to numbers. And my story did shift a bit, and it shifted to I'm good enough at what I do day to day. I can plug in my spreadsheet and send it off to the CPA and the bookkeeper. I can do that. That's good enough. And so it no longer has to hold me back. But it took a long time to get there. So what can you leave here? What story can you place underneath your seat, walk out, and never look back? It's truly that simple. And then, of course, on the flip, what do you want to create for yourself? What story do you want to let sink in right now that you want to carry with you and show up as you continue in your leadership? I know that's not a hard story to get to because it's right there for you. This is just about letting it completely plant and intentionally go for it. What story do you want to give to yourself to then co-create from possibility?
And your pitch is not just words. It's your purpose in motion. And your story and the words you use to tell it should always go back to your purpose. It's up to you to shape that story. So, good news is, you're not alone, because it's 2025 and we are in the wonderful world of AI. And that brings me to my final corporate brand hack. AI is your new marketing intern. And I do not mean it's here to replace your associates, right? It is here to upskill them, to give them speed, agility, creative ideas. Marketing is one of the lowest hanging fruits to adopt AI internally, right? So what you can do is either brainstorm with Copilot or take on dedicated marketing AI tools like Jasper AI or AnyWord. Plug in that brand personality we just identified. Match it with your core messaging. You now have the start to your brand story. But I want to take you back well before the time of AI to one of the most well-known brands in the world, Nike. We all recognize their tagline, those 3 words. If I were to ask you which of those 3 words is the most important, what would you say? Shout it out. Thank you. Every time I ask that question, the first answer I get is do, because it's the action word. Without action, we lose accountability. Sometimes I get it, because it represents the goal, whatever it is that we're trying to achieve. But if we look back to Nike's purpose, which is to bring innovation and inspiration to anybody who wants to be an athlete, and every body is an athlete, you find that the true power lies in the word just. It creates a sense of urgency, a sense of no excuses. And if you really want to do it, you just have to believe in yourself. Your story should always drive back to your purpose.
Your purpose?
Yes.
Just start small.
Just start small.
Just start small. You've brought us full circle. Back to where we started. It's probably time we wrap this up.
Yes.
We could do it all day, but we probably should, yeah. Collect the small wins. Keep them posted where you can see them. Pause to celebrate, because that is your purpose unfolding.
And your small wins are how you show up every single day. And your personality is what makes you memorable. It builds trust. It delivers a clear and consistent message to whoever your target audience is. So when thinking about presence, lead with personality.
Use that personality to talk to yourself kindly, to have that script running inside full of grace and a lot of self-love. And then, of course, let that shine onto your others and make sure that pitch matches inside.
So, Stace, this has been really fun.
It's been so fun.
But this is actually not the first time I've asked you to share the stage with me this year.
No.
We've had a little big moment.
We've had a lot. We've had some bookend years.
We did.
Month, yeah.
We did.
Back in January of this year, I had the honor of marrying one of my best friends, my brother, to his best friend. And I got to announce to all of our friends and family and welcome the newest Stacie Nadeau to our family.
Thank you.
We even have the same middle name. Like, how wild is that? Same middle name, same everything. And we are so lucky.
So lucky.
That we get to go through the rest of life as sisters with the same name. But here's the good news. You don't have to be a Nadeau for these tools to sink in. Our invitation, our encouragement is for you to take what we've shared today and connect with the people around you. Because mastering these tools helps you do that. It helps you find your people. And where better than a room like this full of unbelievably badass women? Because when you do it, that's when your brand has the biggest impact.
Thank you, guys.